Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your email questions and comments, dj@ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Hi there, Z-Man. You caught me in mid-gulp. I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And she's Margaret. And welcome to the Soul of the Everyman, where the points are going to start to matter again. Because we're keeping score now.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. So for all of you playing along at home, you all have -10. Anyway, so no, we're not going to do that, are we? We'll start them off at 0.
Okay.
We have not been drinking. As far as you know. Anyway, tonight is poetry night.
Oh dear.
Because we hadn't had poetry night in a long time.
Yes, this is true.
And we were sitting down, and you reminded me or us of a show that we had done some time back on a poem by Khalil Gibran, who's one of our favorites. And so we decided, well, let's do another one by Khalil. And this one, I would say, arguably, it's one of his best I've ever read.
I would concur on that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's an amazing poem. So we're going to go through it, and the theme of this is, the name of it rather, is "Let These Be Your Desires." And before we go into the poem itself, the context here is, at least from the point of view of the now, is that there's a portion of this poem which deals immediately with the now, and then there's a portion of the poem which I would say arguably deals with sort of the surroundings, the echoes of the now that people bring into their daily lives, and those would be the desires.
Okay. I would agree, yes.
So without further ado, would you like to go
read it?
Well, let's go in. Let's do a stanza or two and see how we go. But this is Let These Be Your Desires by Khalil Gibran.
All right. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if your love and must needs but if your love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires. To melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips.
And that, that's a good portion of the poem. I think the print we have is slightly off, because I think that's what made you stumble. It said, but if your love, and it actually reads, but if you love and must needs have desires. So I think they put but if your love. And it makes much more sense if you say, but if you love and must needs have desires. And that, I thought, was the central thought of that beginning, because what Khalil is saying is that love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. Love actually needs no desire. Love is a thing unto itself. It has no need to justify itself. It has no need to It is an end unto itself.
Yes, loving is the fulfillment. And so it doesn't need uh, to be explained or reasoned. It is, and it is a state of being. So love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desire, let these be your desires.
Right.
To understand that love is so key for your very being. Because that emptiness that a lot of people feel, and they don't talk about it, okay? They just sort of push it aside and like, oh, well, and they busy themselves with something else so that they don't feel that emptiness. But it's there. And what is that emptiness but a moment where you are not loving?
True. And I think, again, what Gibran is saying here is that love, it needs nothing else. But if you love, and you must have desires, in other words, the periphery of love, the echoes of love are these desires. I wish for this particular type of love, or this particular expression of love, or I want something for me that shows I am loved, or I want to do something for the other which expresses my love. And these things, I think, what he's saying is that they can occlude the true love, the essence of love, the fact that it needs no desires, it needs nothing to justify it. It is an end unto itself. But we step back collectively, and we kind of cloud love up with all these things, all these other things that we have around it, and call those things love. And he's saying, well, no, these are just your desires. They're actually echoes. They're filters, justifications. One might even say that they're false. They're less than the true love. They're false loves. These desires, these meeting the desires. But he says, if you have to have desires, let these be your desires. And I think he's really trying to say, find if you have to have them, find the purest ones. Find the ones that are closest to the being state of love. And then he goes into them, each one. And I really love the first one. It's amazing.
His descriptions they hit you at a level where you're feeling it. It's not sitting there and painting a mental picture, but you're realizing what is being evoked from your soul at that point. And many times that feeling has no name in English. That's the interesting part of much of this. I do remember one time one woman was saying how unless there's a word for it, it doesn't exist.
What hubris.
And you're like, okay.
What a mental spin that is. Unless I can name it, it doesn't exist.
Well, just, they're like, it not allowing for the fact that each individual, first of all, uses words very differently from the next person. Even if you're talking about the same language, English is your primary language, and you're speaking English and someone else is, but the words can change in definition, and people use them differently. But by not making space for the fact that happens, you can misunderstand many things very easily. And it really helps to clarify what the person is actually trying to communicate. And not to immediately make a judgment call. Say, well, they're saying that to insult me, or they're saying that to denigrate this thought, or they're saying that, it's always, there's a little voice that wants to judge all this without even understanding what the concept that is being presented to you actually is. It's fascinating, really.
And poetry is really a good poet is really the art of using words as a composer uses the notes to compose a song. Each poem has so many levels and depths that you can read them again and again. So Gibran is a master, as all great poets are. And so this first phrase, to melt, let these be your desires, to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night. And you just sit back there and let that kind of roll through your awareness, and you hear that brook, and you're listening to the sounds of the night, and to realize that your desire should be to be like that brook, to melt and be like a running brook, sort of an endless flowing song, water, emotion, and that sings its melody to the night. And you go, it's just that one image, it strikes you still. If you put it inside yourself and you go, yeah, that's an amazing being moment. It's something of a now phrase, to melt, to let yourself dissolve into becoming a running brook. And then just all you're doing is singing your melody to the night. That's so beautiful.
Well, to melt and be like a running brook. If you think about it in terms of structures internally, mental structures are usually very rigid. Responses are rigid. Thoughts can be rigid. So what he's saying is melting all this, not being so concerned about the structure, but understanding that that is part of an experience along your lifeline. And allow it to come together and flow as one, like a running brook. In other words, it flows. The brook always just flows. And as it flows, and as it hits different bends and obstacles, that's where the song comes. And in that image itself, it's realizing that those turns in your life where you're running into hard places or bends in the way your life goes, those become the song of the brook as it travels along its way. And it sings its melody always. I don't know if people realize that. People think that when they fall asleep, then their song is, they're not singing anything.
They're asleep, turn off the brook.
But your song is always singing. It's something that happens to you as you go through your life. People hear your song, whether you realize it or not. And those that are willing to listen can understand a lot of you through that song.
In the context of this poem, in the context of love and a desire, to say, to desire to do this, to melt and be like a running brook, it's something he's putting this as saying, well, if you're going to step back from love, the absolute love, and say, well, I'm going to get there through, I'm going to attain it somehow. One of the attainments, one of the ways to move towards the being state is to go in this route, to allow yourself to melt, to be like the running brook. And exactly, to understand that your song is it's in a path, but it has winds, it has turns, it has unexpected obstacles. And that singing leads you, that acceptance of the way the brook turns and the singing that comes from it leads you back towards the source, back towards love. The next one is even better. Just that one simple sentence. It's the whole stanza, is to know the pain of too much tenderness.
Yes. Yes. To know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding, or your own understanding of love. When you say understanding of love, that is a fullness of expression. People believe understanding is a mental understanding of things, or maybe an emotional understanding of things. But the fullness of understanding of love is encompassing the reasons, the way something occurs or unfolds before your eyes. And you realize in that ability to pick up on the nuances, the delicateness of your heart, to begin to pick up on all of it, all the agonies and the doubt, as well as the happiness and the elation. To say your heart is wounded by the understanding of love, you can be wounded by the great joys as well as the great sorrows. So that because your heart, your human heart, has a limit, and when you go past that limit, you stretch your boundary and pain occurs. You've reached your limit and pain occurs. But you are aware enough to understand that this is just a limit you've reached. It's neither good nor bad, but it is a limit. And you've begun to understand your human heart and its connection to a much greater divine heart.
The fact that you can expand beyond your limits means that the limits were artificial. They're boundaries which are set upon your heart by a mental constraint, or by I couldn't do this and I can't do that and I must do this and I must do that. And then you reach those limits, and perhaps you get there, as he says, the pain of too much tenderness, or wounded by your own understanding of love. But then you reach those limits and you realize that there is space beyond them to expand into, that in wounding the heart, it grows. And in understanding that the heart's wounding is not it's not the breaking of love, it's the encompassing of a greater heart. Beyond the boundaries, the pain is somewhat from your own self, putting limits on your own self, and realizing as you come to the end of yourself that there's pain there. And only in coming to the end of yourself can you start to become closer to the truth, to the true being state. The self is the mental self, the emotional self, the little I. And to know the pain of too much tenderness, that's the way you get there, to be wounded by your own understanding. It's another way to get there. This is a desire that he says, this is part of your path to get to truly the being.
Right. In all honesty, this tenderness and allowing yourself to feel the wounding is because of your understanding of love. That's the cross that Jesus was talking about.
Yeah, certainly.
You are wounded. You are wounded by carrying that understanding of love, which is the cross. And it calls you, beckons you to a higher form of humanity. Because your heart, in its human form, would rather run away from any kind of heart hurt.
Right.
But when you understand that you are reaching past the limitations, you understand that the pain will happen and always does. You can't avoid it. It's a very powerful poem and a powerful state of being.
Well, in the next phrase, in the next sentence here, and to bleed willingly and joyfully. Now, as you just mentioned, the sacrifice of Christ, but the sacrifice of anyone who has reached their limit, reached the end, and goes beyond it willingly and joyfully, because they know that whatever needs to be done, regardless of whatever pain it costs me, I'm willing to do. We ran into exactly that scenario with Christopher in Sloan, and not just us, but many others, and many today that are unknown to us. The bounds of the heart are a little bit, they're a little bit contrived. They're very much the safe boundaries that we want to put on it. But if you're courageous and willing and joyful enough to understand that those boundaries, when you meet them and exceed them and there's pain, that you have to continue. You have to go beyond that. Then those are the desires that are bringing you to the actual source, the actual being state.
To be willing to, what is it? The last line we were looking at is to bleed willingly
and joyfully.
And joyfully.
Yeah.
It's understanding that every day that you engage in is a blessed day for you to have this experience. And it's a difficult thing to explain because people are looking at you like you're just crazy. You must be crazy because your son is sick and they're not giving you any good news, but yet you seem to be happy and enjoying yourselves. What is wrong with you? And this is the logic aspect, or the part that of your mind or mental state that wants to put it in terms that it can put handles on and manipulate. It's like, okay, well, you do this, you do this, you do this. And it's not being engaged in the moment that you are alive now. And you are alive not by your own effort. When you are looking at the many children on that cancer ward and realizing they are all fighting for their lives and their families are also there trying to help them fight for their lives. You acknowledge that you are in that situation, and it's not by your own hand, especially pediatrics, children. They didn't do anything to bring the cancer on, not by their choice. So all those have been dealt this hand. So what do? Are you going to sit in a corner and not live? Worry about everything and feel that somehow this is somehow helping? But in that situation, your child is calling you to be with you, to live and to love. So now you love, but outside the bounds of what you thought was normal, everyday motherly love or fatherly love, way past those boundaries.
Right, and that portion hurts. And then you get beyond, it doesn't stop hurting, but you get beyond the desire or the need for the boundaries. And then you're right, people look at you like you're crazy. But there's an element of fear there, because what you're exhibiting is something which is beyond their understanding at the moment. Right. I think at a heart level they can understand it, but they say, "Oh, I would never be able to do that. I don't understand how you can be this, whatever. Put a label on this strong, this, that, this, the other thing." None of that actually is true, because it has nothing to do with strength or endurance or any of that stuff. Those things may help, but in fact, what it is acceptance. Oh, this is your moment of now, whether you can express it that way at the time or not. You just know that where you are now, you have to live in that now, because it's all you have, and you no longer get to put the boundaries on it. You instead have to say, I'm going to live here, as the poet says, bleeding willingly and joyfully, and understand that the joy and the willingness is only to accept, the joy of acceptance of this moment of now, which it is, and the willingness to say, yes, I will continue in this moment of now. And I think this is a good moment to take a break and go back to the studio, because there's much more to come with this. But just take this into the studio, that the moment of now, that willingness to bleed and to be joyful in it, is in every moment of our lives, not in just the hard moments. Anyway, let's go back to the studio and think about that for a little bit. And on the other side, we'll talk more about desires.
Batman Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. Moonstones and Murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Hello, this is Highway 59 recording artist Randy Moore, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
For joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, C-Man. And today we are doing poetry with the first in several months, and we're doing one of our favorite poets, was Khalil Gibran, and we're in the middle of his wonderful poem, really about love. and in essence, the things that people put around, that kind of people hang off of love, their desires. And where we are right now in the middle here is a wonderful phrase. We just said, and to bleed willingly and joyfully as one of the things that he feels is necessary to coming closer to what is the absolute love. But this one is wonderful. To wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving. There's another just beautiful image, because each one of us should, whether we do or not, give thanks for opening your eyes in the morning, for that first awareness, the return of awareness, and that the idea of waking at dawn without your cares and your burdens and your concerns and all the pieces of your life which seem to be so desperately important, leave those behind and have a winged heart, a light heart, a heart which soars, a heart which is one with the dawn in essence, and give thanks for another day of loving. And isn't that every day, and really that moment of now, which you have to carry with you through each moment of now. Waking at dawn is the image, but it's really every moment of now, each time you return to awareness in the moment, to do it with a winged heart, a lightness in your heart.
Wake at dawn, which is the darkness is slipping away, with a winged heart. And a heart at that point, after you have experienced and acknowledged what you have seen, where your heart has been wounded, to allow that rest and to rise up strong. During the dawn, your heart is not only made whole again, but it has wings now, which means that your perspective is no longer just the small human heart that could not contain the immensity of the experiences that you had undergone before. But with these wings, you are given the ability and the opportunity to embrace the new day, a completely new perspective. So, having that new perspective allows you to realize that today you can love again. It may hurt, but I can love again. And it's okay, because now I do not have the bounds of just human love. I have the ability to love divinely at a higher perspective, with much more strength and capability and love than I had before. Because there's points when you get through the experiences of life where your human heart is aching because it feels almost as if I don't have any more love to give. How am I going to get through this? And I need to be able to be abiding in this unconditional love. Help me, Lord. Help me. Because I need the strength and the energy and the perspective not to fall into a heap watching what is unfolding before my eyes. So yes, a winged heart, a heart that is akin with the divine.
Well, and what you said there too, Ma, is that it expands. It's wounded. It heals, and in healing you gain perspective, but you gain those wings. That's an amazing image.
Yes, and it's the only image, the only way you can describe that you are sustained through the horrors that you're seeing, as well as the incredible elation that you're seeing. You need to be sustained, you need to be reinforced, you need to be held by a divine hand around you as you go through this. It's hard to explain.
We also gain capacity. Your heart, the heart that you have, that you think you have, is not the size of the heart you actually have. And the heart that you think you have, when you go past its boundaries, is that mental breaking, the pain we talked about just a little bit back there. And then you expand and you realize that your heart is vast, as you are vast. That is far beyond is far greater than the heart you thought you had, as you are far greater than who you think you are. And then once you open up, you get wings, but you get this amazing boundless capacity which can be filled and which then you can draw upon as a reservoir, in one sense, a limitless reservoir to bring into this existence and have that ability to continue far beyond what you, and I mean by all of us, think we can do. The exhaustion, the pain, the brokenness. You go into that night, you wake at dawn with a winged heart, healed in some ways. Not that you weren't hurt and weren't wounded and aren't scarred. All those things are true. But it's like the stone rolling back from the tomb at dawn. You've got a new heart. You've got a new body. You've got a limitless capacity that you could never have thought you would have, because you can't think your way into it, if you know what I mean.
Well, it's at that point that you are grateful. You're grateful for this connection and the expanded capacity and the strength that's flowing through you that is not of your own.
Yep.
You are so grateful to have another day to love, because to love truly takes everything you got and more. It goes past the bounds of a human heart. So to rest at noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy. And most people are looking at that going, well, that just seems to be a poetic line somewhere. But to understand that the noon hour is when you are at the hottest point of the day, under the blaze of the full sun. But to understand that in that heat, in that light surrounding you throughout that moment, you realize that love is there. And you can give and receive. You receive the love and the strength from above, and you give it out in that noonday sun at the height of it all, the height of the most intense experiences you'll ever have. And it's a beautiful thing. Actually, it is a sublime thing. You cannot put words to this experience. Most people say, oh, good or bad. It's like, no, you don't. There are no human words to describe this. Once you understand that your human heart has broken all its boundaries, you have to realize that human words also only describe the boundaries of a human heart. To go past that literally is a sublime state of being.
And the poet is attempting to capture it, but you have to allow the words to kind of soak in, and then realize that what he's saying is beyond words, no matter how good the words are. The final sort of coda there, or the stanza here is to return home at eventide with gratitude. I mean, the other way to look at this is an analog of your life. You're born at dawn with the winged heart. You give thanks for another day, for your life, for your existence. You have the arc of the sun, which is your life. It's noon, and then return home, return back to source at eventide with gratitude, with everything that you've experienced, whatever it may have been, and bring it back joyfully, and perhaps for another day. But each day, each moment of now has all three of these things. Each day can be an analog of your life, and to go through it with this as your guide, not your goal, but your guide.
To return home.
Mm-hmm.
Yearning to return home after a long day's battle. How can you describe that feeling unless you have not been able to return home? Something prevents you. The heart yearns to come home, especially at the set of the sun at the end of the day. And just be happy to be home. Oh my.
And then to sleep with a prayer.
Yes. To understand that you go through the cycle again every day. And the fact that you wake up and the world has not ended is an amazing thing.
Yes, each new awareness.
Oh, I'm quite serious, because people believe that they set things in motion and it's always going to be this way, like they are in charge of everything. And you're not in charge of even your next breath. How can you possibly believe that you're in charge of being able to wake up the next morning? Seriously.
Well, it's to take it aside for a moment, these are the mental conceits. And to come to the end of that is something which the poet here is saying is a desire to truly get to love in the being state. You have to pass through these gates. And one of the gates is this mental concept of I control whether the sun rises or sets, and that my likes and my dislikes are so incredibly important. And yes, initially you may be trapped there for a time or for a season, but you're going to come to the end of yourself, whether you like it or not, and you have to, in essence, accept that, grow in, as he said, bleed willingly and joyfully, and then you'll have this section here: to wake at dawn, give thanks, rest, return home, to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart. This is beyond this. You've accepted the bleeding and willingly and joyfully. You've gone beyond yourself. You're getting closer now. You've got this portion of it to understand that love is beyond all these things, but it's certainly beyond what you thought you were and what you thought love was. All those mental concepts or the emotional concepts.
Yes. For the beloved in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of that phrase, how many people abide in your heart? How many people have you put there? I had to explain to Christopher in this way, because he did ask me one time, well, Mommy, what is love? And it's a small child, 5 or 6 at the time, and he wants to know what love is. And the analogy that Grace gave me to tell him was, you know how when Mommy goes out and she's trying to pick out like some snacks or something for you, and she brings back a snack that you really love, but you didn't know about? How did that happen? How did she know? Mommy asks with Christopher that's inside her, in her heart, would he like this snack? And he either says yes or no. And that's what happens when you love. You put the other person's essence right into your heart so that they are there forever. Because love is eternal, goes past all form, and it is an amazing thing. And that was the beginning of our conversation of what is love. So, for the beloved in your heart is a key phrase. For you get to a point where you love unconditionally, and the only thing that your heart can do is love, regardless of what it seems on the outside.
And you can contain every being, everyone that you love, and you are contained in all those who love you, in their heart. And again, as you said, heart is not an organ which is bound by time or bound in any way. We tend to put boundaries upon the heart which it does not actually possess or have. And so when you put somebody in your heart, you put their essence in your heart, you don't have to go far to talk with them, to have them with you. And the bounds of the heart are beyond, and they don't recognize death. We all know we have relationships with people who are not corporeal anymore. They're not here. Yet you would never say, well, I don't have a relationship with this person anymore. It's a false thing to say, oh, well, they're not here anymore, so I can't talk to them. I can't. No, of course you can. You know you can. You know it's false when you say it, because your heart says, of course they're right here. And you have to trust, and in that there's some pain involved there, because you go back and you talk to this person, and you can talk to them anytime you want to, but you have to overcome your own fear, overcome your own limitations to do it. However, once you have allowed somebody into your heart, they've entered a place which does not have time, and it exceeds the bounds of corporeal existence. And it doesn't recognize it at all, as no relationship to this. It's the eternal. You relate to them in the corporeal form, perhaps, and if you may not, but that may be a way to see them as they were, or as you imagine them to be. But that doesn't matter. You can hear their true voice, have an actual conversation with these people. And you know you can. Why? Because they're in your heart, not just a memory, not just an image, it's not just a photograph, it's them. And if you are in another's heart, it's you. A piece of you is within them.
Right. And that is the experience that we have down here as human beings that are expanding and incorporating more and more of your spirit and your soul, because those are the avenues by which the eternal relationship is set. So to embrace that, to understand that if you concentrate solely on the body, you will fall short within your heart, within your being. You're like, there's something missing. something's really missing. What's going on? And again, how many times have we seen or experienced, you absolutely think you need this, whatever this is, this thing, or this raise, or this,
accomplishment, this trophy, whatever it is.
and you finally get it, and it's fun for a while, and then there's an emptiness. To acknowledge that and say, okay, my heart is looking for something more. So much more. And if you don't answer it, that's when the pain starts.
Right. Well, your heart will bring you to yourself, and it can be initially a painful journey, but in the end, you will acquire your wings. And I love this last line of the poem. I guess we're coming to the end of the show here, but for the beloved in your heart, sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart, and a song of praise upon your lips. And who are you praising here? You're not praising yourself. You're acknowledging the connection with Source and praising the Source within you, the God within you, the incarnate Spirit within you, which exceeds time, from which and with which the heart communicates and contains, and is beyond the mental and beyond the emotional and beyond the corporeal and the temporal, and is our true nature. I mean, that's what this is really talking about, that the being in love is being in that eternal song, and it's a song of praise.
Yes. And to be able to continue with it until the end.
Until the end.
And we have reached the end of our show. So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.